If you only read the title and are rushing to the comments to let me know what genius of an artist Galliano really is, he doesn't really know you exist, he doesn't know I exist, and he sure as heck does not care. And I agree. He is incredibly, incredibly talented couturier, artist, and a showman. Anyway, hello you good people, welcome to my little fashion corner, or welcome back depending on your browser history. I always start writing these thinking this is just going to be this short and snappy video on whatever is currently on my mind, and then writing Linda happens. So bear with me. Starting strong with a little trigger and content warning, topics like hate speech, racism, alcohol, drug addiction, some of the worst will come up. So please take that into consideration. This video is quite philosophical, I suppose. It is me mostly trying to make sense of a topic that's been on my mind for years. It's a combination of separating the art from the artist and true colors, or something like that. Separating the art from the artist is a concept we could ponder over for hours. Many artists involved in some kind of unpleasant or downright treacherous behavior, yet I find myself having so-called soft spot for many and would apologize a little more than for the others. And it is not exactly easy for my brain to come at peace with those things, as well those soft spots can be quite influential, and on the other hand I would stand my ground on things that some might consider incredibly silly. For example, not buying stuff from campaigns that currently feature anyone from the Kardashian-Jenner clan. Sorry Gucci, I know you're all just heartbroken by that. This all started so innocently. There's a documentary called High and Low on Galliano, directed by Kevin MacDonald, who won an Oscar and was nominated for many awards. Kudos to him. No idea how scripted that documentary was. It was said that Galliano sat down for 5 days of interviews for that documentary, and based on what I've heard, he was pretty open about everything. Well, heard and read. He was pretty open about everything. That made me want to watch it, kind of, sort of. When I looked it up, I saw that I would have had to pay 4 or 5 quid because I didn't have that streaming service. And now that I don't have those 5 coins, I do, and I'm quite happy about that. I like to think of myself as a hard worker. But then one of those voices living in my head said, do you really want to pay for that? And the answer was no, I really don't. Therefore, please keep in mind that I didn't watch that documentary, and if you are interested, I'm sure it's somewhere out there. I'll be referencing this Guardian article that is covering this documentary, which certainly helped me form an opinion on that. John Galliano, undeniably a legend of the fashion world. He is indispensable to it. Do you like the Dior saddleback? That's Galliano. Bias cut slip dresses, he brought that back in the 90s and made some really nice lingerie. Many Victorian era shows, anything Margiela for the past decade, Galliano. Very recently, his January catwalk for Maison Margiela was, I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't revolutionary for Galliano's work. I think it was more of a Galliano's tribute to, well, Galliano, but it went viral, for lack of better description, and it was good. And to be quite honest, I wasn't really keeping up with him, with Galliano that is. I wasn't really avoiding Margiela, but definitely wasn't seeking them out. I suppose my subconscious knew better, and please don't tell on me, he'd be crushed. Why are we starting another backstory to a backstory? Well, I'm glad you asked. Millennials really pushed the debate on people doing great things. Good for us? Question mark? Who invented the cancel culture? Was it millennials? Anyway, millennials, I mean, what a time to be a kid and what a time to be an adult. In my opinion, of course. We lived through technological transformation, formative music boom, major fashion episodes, birth of social media, and made it through a number of financial crises. 2024 and just existing is so expensive. We, my fellow 90s kids and I, learned very quickly that we vote with our dollar. What we buy is the most we can do. We didn't really have a voice. That is getting slightly better. Shutting up was just easier than the repercussions. We know that we won't be able to beat capitalism at its own game, so whenever we go on a shopping spree, we probably choose something that is aligned with our own beliefs. And as I said in the beginning, one of my things is if I see a campaign featuring anyone from the Kardashian-Jenner PR house, I'm not buying anything. And that's only because I've learned not to take any bullshit from them celebrities. Social media took away the hidden press cob machine's power, so the Kris Jenner's PR machines and similar would not have such reach or power, and we can easily pinpoint events and draw down timelines. We aren't that easily fooled anymore by just another story, Chloe being cheated on, just a cover for another lawsuit coming after the family. Now, all the docuseries that are coming out on millennial pop culture or figures of, where aging millennials just like myself get a story on how rotten people really were or are, have been. I don't suppose I need to go into great detail as to who did what. I'm also quite familiar with the concept of hurt people, but that is not what I'm talking about. Here on YouTube, you cannot really scroll too far without bumping into a so-called rise and fall video. So can I finally get into what I'm trying to say? Let's see. John Charles Galliano, which is, by the way, not the name that he was given by his parents, but we'll tackle that one later, was born on November 28th, 1960s in Gibraltar, a British overseas territory. But his family moved to London when he was a child. He grew up in a working-class environment where his Spanish mother's love for glamour and flamboyant dressing influenced his developing style. Love. Galliano attended Central St. Martin's College of Art Design, an institution we're very familiar with and we love, graduating in 1984 with a collection called Les Incroyables, inspired by the French Revolution, immediately drawing attention from the fashion press, and was very quickly bought by London boutiques Browns, which then allowed him to launch his eponymous label. So the way I understand it, that was his first official collection. Galliano's style is very much historical references, opulence, Victorian era, avant-garde. You can refer to my Schiaparelli video for the world's worst art lecture, and those amazing silhouettes. He was Alexander McQueen before McQueen himself, to me at least. I did say he was incredibly talented, and it seems that he was hardworking as well. He's meeting the right people, he's doing the right things, and in 1995 he was appointed by a middle-aged rich white male himself, Mr. Bernard Arnault of LVMH, to lead Givenchy. He then became the first Brit to lead a major fashion house, a major French fashion house. That was a massive thing. I cannot even be mad about that. Galliano is a fantastic tailor and his style absolutely fits House of Givenchy, and he was succeeded by McQueen, so there is a pattern. Good one and a bad one. His debut was absolute bomb. He straight away was reinventing Givenchy, which led to another phone call. I don't think it was actually a phone call. I'm sure an opulent meal or drink was involved, from Mr. Arnault himself again, and he was offered to lead Christian Dior 1 year later. That's how successful he was. His tenure correlated with Marc Jacobs' tenure at Louis Vuitton, and I would argue this made Galliano the second most powerful designer at the time, and that is probably because I'm massively biased towards Marc Jacobs. Let's talk about the little things before 2011, because 2011 is a big mark on the Galliano timeline. So the first and most obvious big little thing is working under pressure. I'm positive he had to work under intense pressure, which led to conflicts with colleagues and staff. Usually these stories wouldn't make it into the mainstream media back then, but you'd read hot goss from insiders describing him as intense, sometimes volatile. Just look at, The Devil Wears Prada. Same thing, different rapper. We can only speculate, but reading/hearing similar things from Marc Jacobs during virtually the same era. It was a cutthroat industry, it still is, with this immense pressure put on you to produce collections worth tens of millions of dollars. Not an easy job. Second little thing, what the internet described as larger-than-life personality. He seemed quite outspoken. I can only presume he had to advocate to make his shows as elaborate as they were. Management doesn't always like to put a lot of money into production or marketing. They just like to automagically create sales. So I bet some of those reports of spats with colleagues or executives were based in some truth. It's rumored that these outbursts, passionate advocacy for his work and vision, were crafting his reputation as a demanding and sometimes difficult to manage. Last but not least, topic very, very dear to my heart, and something we're going to mention a lot today, is alcohol and substance use. I would like to say that I've read Galliano is now a decade sober, which is incredible, and I hope Sober Life is treating him well. Just as a statement, not insertion of any type of authority. I too am sober. I have been for 6 years this December, although I should probably say I'm more of a recovering addict. For the sake of our understanding, this fashion corner recognizes addiction as an illness, a disease. Rumors had it, and Galliano then went on what I'd like to call curated PR campaign and confirmed that he was increasingly more dependent on alcohol and drugs. People react differently to substances, obviously. Being a bigger nightmare is definitely something I'm familiar with. Being more irritable, erratic, aggressive while drunk or under influence is not uncommon. And just in case you needed to hear it today, people who say they're a fun drunk are almost never good for you. You can learn about this period from Galliano himself, who talks about it in his documentary. He goes into quite some detail. One of the stories is quoted in the article covering the documentary and is offering quite a lot of context. And I love context. So this is happening in mid-2000s. Galliano came back to London for a weekend. He checked into the Ritz, where he proceeded to get so drunk that he spent 4 hours naked in a lift, telling guests who tried to enter that he was a lion and warning them off with a growl. The Ritz called his office in Paris, who apologized, offering to cover the bills of any guests who had been inconvenienced. The following week, Galliano was back at work. I don't think that's just alcohol that is spiked, but that's just my opinion only. And he was back at work because he was making everyone just too much money, including himself. And here comes the big thing. 2011, which was a breaking point for Galliano, for Dior executives, for LVMH Group, for Natalie Portman, who's been a Dior ambassador for ages, and then came out with a statement, was it Oscars back then, saying that this is horrible and she doesn't want to be associated with Galliano in any way. And to be fair, so did many others, including many retailers. Whenever Galliano and 2011 come up, it often gets mentioned as anti-Semitic remarks, but rest assured it was worse than that. We're going to read from these articles and because, as always, context matters. He stood in front of a panel of 3 judges during a one-day trial in Paris for racist and anti-Semitic public insults based on origin, religion, race, or ethnicity. He skipped the sentencing day, but that's 50% attendance, that's something. The panel asked about 3 incidents on 2 different evenings, an incident from 8 October 2010 and 24th February 2011, both at La Perle Café in Paris, France, Europe. End of sentence. This first incident from October 2010, I don't know what to say.
Only beautiful people.
It's not good.
Only
There's
people
more
blonde.
Are you blonde? Are you blonde with
No,
blue
but I
eyes?
love Hitler.
See?
People like you would be dead
Yeah.
today. Your mothers, your forefathers would be gassed.
Oh my god. Do you have a problem?
With you? Yeah, I know.
With all people. You don't like peace. You don't want peace in the world.
Not with people like ugly people.
But
like
where are you from?
beautiful people.
Where are you from?
You're
The second incident discussed was from February 2011, and it really isn't much better. In the February incident, a French couple having a beer outside La Perle bar in Paris's Marais district said he repeatedly insulted them with lines including "fucking ugly Jewish bitch" and "fucking Asian bastard." Geraldine Bloch, then 35, said he first asked her to shut up and then criticized her clothes, hair, thighs, eyebrows and makeup. He made 30 anti-Jewish insults in the space of 45 minutes, she said. Another woman said he made similar insults to her in the same bar in October. 30 insults in 45 minutes is a speedy tempo for casual racism and anti-Semitism. I find this part fascinating. Galliano during the trial said that although he was not a theoretician of race, hatred or anti-Semitism, this was everyday anti-Semitism and racism. Now, Geraldine Bloch and her friend, who was reportedly South Asian, took him to court. She was or is a prominent museum curator, which probably gave her a lot more status, power, or confidence to follow this through to a court. During the trial, Galliano claimed he couldn't remember this at all because of his triple addiction to alcohol, sleeping tablets, and Valium. You know, based on my experience, that's 3 downers you've got there. You got to have an upper to keep you going during the day, or depending on the spectrum of addiction in general. So he's definitely not admitting it all. And judging by what we know now, there was a lot more to it. But back then, sleeping tablets, Valium, and alcohol, that was a lot more palatable to the general public. He also said that he went to treatment for his addiction. So sometime between February 2011 and June 2011, he managed to get a handle on his so-called triple addiction. The court was told that his binges were so common that his chauffeur was trained to phone his lawyer if things became too heated. Alcohol and pills Galliano described during his trial as necessary to cope in order to make Dio successful. And he had mere 3 months in rehab. Wow. I should learn something. I started having panic attacks. I couldn't go to work unless I had taken some Valium, he said. The judges, 3 of them, ruled that Galliano had sufficient awareness of his act despite his addiction and his fragile state. The court suspended his fine, taking into account that Galliano had apologized to the plaintiffs during the June trial. Just bear that in mind. The judges noted the values of tolerance in his work. Now, I would like to recognize that back then it wasn't really easy to seek help. It is not really easy to seek help. And I do want to be sympathetic. It was a lot of pressure on him. I'm sure the executives only wanted more and more profit. Capitalism is like that. He also had some tragic losses in his life. And despite that, I simply feel like he had the resources to get the help for his grief and struggles. He was in a very privileged position. Couple of things that bug me, but I can potentially understand using anything to defend self. It is interesting that artists, fashion designers, business people, they all just love work and are deeply passionate about what they do. They have talented teams and all these great ideas, they come to fruition until it's time to stand in front of a judge to face the consequences of your actions. Then they are overworked, traumatized, mentally unwell, battling addiction, which can be all true. We are all but broken bits, but now it's useful in court, hey? The only thing that Galliano didn't seem to bring up to his defense was being gay, which back then wasn't really truly useful to him. He was a gay man in fashion. Point number 1. Galliano claimed mixed roots. As a son of Gibraltarian father of Italian roots and Spanish mother. He was born in Gibraltar, which is British overseas territory. His nationality is British and they came to England when he was 6. He goes by John Charles Galliano and was born Juan Carlos Antonio Galliano-Guillen. I don't speak Spanish, I'm so sorry. Galliano said mixed roots defined his work and that he was not racist. I understand that he's technically right, but surely you demonstrate some sort of adherence to your roots if you wanted to. A white man or white passing with anglicized name and even his work is mostly French decadence. Point number 2, when asked in court about the video where he proclaimed love to the leader of the Nazi regime, Galliano said, "These are not views that I hold or believe in. I see someone who needs help, who's vulnerable. It's the shell of John Galliano. I see someone who's been pushed to the edge." Now, he gets much better at apologizing over the decade. He gets a lot of help. In 2011, I was 21, trying to make a career as a young single mom, and I wasn't really following this whole ordeal. I read about it a way later. When researching for this video, I sought out counsel on what the heck is going on here. I asked someone who's educated and a practicing professional in this field to help me understand what disorders make you racist. I was told that there is no known case of psychiatric disorder that manifests in spontaneously expressing bigotry. Galliano could argue dissociative disorder, and one of those personas has those beliefs, but that was probably the only thing he didn't throw at the panel of judges, that and being gay. When Galliano went on what I believe is a PR tour to get his image back, and we're going to cover this a lot more in a moment, he revisited this awful incident saying, "It's the worst thing that I have said in my life, but I didn't mean it. I have been trying to find out why that anger was directed at this race. I now realize I was so fucking angry and so discontent with myself that I just said the most spiteful thing that I could." In the hate speech court, so to speak, Galliano said, "They are not views that I hold or believe in. I apologize for the sadness this whole affair had caused. You know, this whole unfortunate thing that only annoys everyone. I don't know if this helps. And then later in the article, he pines over how only one person went to see him in rehab the first visitor's weekend. Obviously, it's about how it impacted him and not everyone around. And my third point, the ruling. So again, I sought out counsel to get context for this too, because it just seemed a little bit off to me, and it's not my area of expertise. So Galliano was given a suspended fine totaling €6,000. He was also ordered to pay court fees for the 3 complainants, and I think he was donating to anti-racism groups. I really do want to be understanding. One finds themselves in a situation when even the closest friends have to acknowledge that you're just not even willing to dream about accepting help. So stood in front of a panel of 3 judges and supposed to explain how anti-Semitic rants, plural, were okay. One throws just about anything in the mix and hopes something sticks. It's not me feeling like he's blaming everything but himself. An article published on BBC's website says he blamed drug and alcohol addictions for his outbursts. Galliano was 51 in 2011, and this is how I'm processing it all. If I stood in the same court facing the same charges, would I get the same outcome? Or if it were a person of color or someone with less resources, looking a lot less put together, not really famous, not contributing to French economy by being a designer for a major French fashion house, would the ruling be same? Or would I walk away with much thicker fine, mandated rehab/therapy, probation, deportation, something like that? And I don't think it was contextually insignificant that one of the complainants was Miss Geraldine. Do you think that a person with social status in 2011 would be able to bring formal complaints or something like that? The army of lawyers would intimidate the living heck out of that person, which could have been happening at any time towards anyone who felt wrong or abused or at any given point of time. If you wanted to keep your career or just not get buried in lawyers' fees, you just have to, unfortunately, keep it moving. Now, this is entirely my opinion, and you'll probably have to watch a lot of videos pre and post this court. But I don't really believe that he was sorry about any of this. He was only sorry that it affected his career, that it was no longer tolerable. People got tired of hiding his inappropriate behavior. And this is what I've been thinking this entire time. I think it was buried deep inside of me, but the longer it brewed, it absolutely erupted with the speculations that he could be joining Fendi. I also kind of hate the feeling that he walked away relatively unscathed, because the 51-year-old white man, a gay man in fashion, then leading one of the most powerful houses with enough resources to apparently upkeep his raging addictions, and then some. This was not enough, in my opinion, that is. He was well off at that point, and he did not suffer the consequences he should have. Even now, media refer to it as he was fined. It was a criminal conviction. For a 51-year-old person, it was not just a silly youngster said a thing. Also, shout out to François Hollande, the French president at the time, for revoking his National Order of the Legion of Honor by a presidential decree in August 2012. I wonder if we can expect something similar regarding Naomi Scandal. Now, we could stop it here, but apparently I'm a sucker for punishment. So let's spend the rest of the video talking about this decade-long PR campaign. And it started almost right away. After the incident in February 2011, Galliano was dismissed from Christian Dior in March. He tried to claim unfair dismissal in court, which is his right. He was seeking between 2.4 and 13 million euro in damages. I read somewhere that he was looking for a good 6 mil, but he lost, appealed, got to try it in France, and lost and ordered to pay a symbolic €1 to Christian Dior and John Galliano, the label, each. Obviously, he has things to say, so let's see what his defense in the tribunal was. The 2 companies were fully aware of my state I took Valium so that I could get through fittings. I can't let the 17 years spent and enjoyed at Dior be blackened like this. During these years as creative director of this house, I did not realize that its success, multiplying its sales by 4, came at a destructive, exorbitant cost. My physical and mental health. Always more work, always more obligations, always more pressure. A dangerous and pathological spiral without control. Firstly, using blackened as someone who was just convicted of racist claims, rude. Secondly, yes, that poor thing was just overworked. He couldn't possibly walk away from all that money and fame that he wasn't really after. He was doing society a favor by sharing its arts. A lawyer for Galliano said after the ruling, Mr. Galliano is relieved. Relieved that these 8 months are behind him. He is looking forward to a future with understanding and forgiveness, hopefully, and to put all of this behind him. Heavens forbid that he is looking forward to building and contributing to a more kind and understanding world where powerful people don't expect to just get away with hateful shit. That ruling was in September 2011, and after that, Galliano decided to step away and focus on himself. I mean, good for him, honestly. In 2013 interview for Women's Wear Daily, he said, I'm an alcoholic. I have been in recovery for the past 2 years. And 2013, ladies and gentlemen, is when his public image rehabilitation truly begins. However, as I said, his creeping back started even before that trial. Just a note, I sort of did mention it, but alcoholism is just much more palatable to the general public. Anyone out there remembers when Lindsay Lohan went on, I think, the Ellen show and tried to help her image back then? And Ellen asks her, why did you do cocaine? And Lindsay says, it allowed me to drink more, for sure. I mean, I should hate the game and not the player, I guess. Back to Galliano's public image curation. What was the series of events after this? First and foremost, Galliano was able to take some time off, as we mentioned, which fair enough, good on you. I'm glad people can walk away from a toxic situation, which this work thing doesn't really sound like it was a good thing for him. Whatever. In Paris, he was out and about in his neighborhood, the Marais, hitting restaurant, his favorite florist, and a nearby nail bar. He has long loved a good manicure and pedicure. He spent a fair amount of time at his country house in Auvergne in central France, a residence his boyfriend Alexis Roche is said by his friends to have pushed him to buy. Galliano preferred Côte d'Azur, in particular Saint-Tropez, where he and Roche have summered for the past decade. In Auvergne, Galliano spent much of his time working in his garden, and friends say his talents in horticulture are as gifted as in illustration and fashion. So not even 2 years of gardening, mani-pedis, florist shops, and eating at restaurants. Okay, Emily Gilmore, we get it. Women in the States get 2 weeks of maternity leave, but do tell us how absolutely devastating for your career and mental health the consequences of your actions have been. Kate Moss, who should obviously play me in my autobiographic movie, arranged Galliano as her wedding dress designer shortly after the court in 2011. To be fair, she just stuck to a previous agreement that they had. That is between you and your moral compass, I suppose. Kate Moss tells Vanity Fair that when my dad gave his speech, he thanked everyone, and then he referred to the genius of Galliano who made his daughter's dress. Everyone stood up and gave John a standing ovation. It was the most moving thing because suddenly John realized he wasn't on his own. He speaks with a wide range of sources for the article, Galliano's friends and colleagues, including Kate Moss, Oscar de Renta, Diane von Furstenberg, Elton John, Anna Wintour, Jonathan Newhouse, Naomi Campbell, members of the Jewish community, and several addiction specialists and major retailers. That Elton John in there hurt. Patricia fucking Field, like we need her to enter the chat. The stylist behind Sex and the City, The Devil Wears Prada, much more, and a horrible human being, said his remarks were no more than a theater and sent out emails headed in praise of John Galliano. It doesn't really sound like the world was wildly appalled by the blatant racism the criminal conviction and was more than happy to find apologies. January 2013, not even 2 years after that conviction, Oscar de la Renta, who sadly passed away in October the next year, has given Galliano a 2-year residency that was arranged by someone who has a vested interest in fashion being talked about, popular and or sensationalized, fashion labels being in their favor, all wrapped in a ribbon on it. Anna Wintour. Wish we could avoid her. De la Renta said, John and I have known each other for many years and I am a great admirer of his talent. He has worked long and hard on his recovery and I am happy to give him the opportunity to re-immerse himself in the world of fashion and re-acclimate in an environment where he has been so creative. Worked long and hard on his recovery, sure. In 2013, he's saying he's been in recovery for the past 2 years. And I'm not going to speculate whether he'd been sober or not. That's between him and whatever higher power he believes in. Can we get a little bit of humility somewhere? Starting 4th June 2013, we get what I consider to be a full bloom of that image rehab campaign. Vanity Fair published a massive article, an interview with Galliano, his first exclusive since that unfortunate thing that happened to him. The article really is just 10 out of 10 PR laundry wash of Galliano's criminal conviction and its consequences. Galliano has been defended on multiple occasions by Anti-Defamation League, which I'm not going to get into because I will get irrationally angry. They promote many what I consider hateful narratives, but I suppose are quite happy nowadays. They are a supporter of the US president-elect. They took it upon themselves to give him an absolution on behalf of all Jewish beliefs and then rushed to his defense again after this incident. After Galliano appeared in public to attend his show in this attire that really can be perceived and was perceived by many as a Hasidic Jewish outfit. Again, the National Director of Anti-Defamation League, an organization that claims to be fighting against anti-Semitism along other forms of bigotry, but in my opinion isn't pro-Palestine, behaves as criticizing Israeli government is anti-Semitism, promotes hateful speech against some other religions, and a lot more to it. So this organization's leader, Mr. Foxman, maintains that the speculation is ridiculous and absurd distortion. His publicist really spun this one, even went on a tirade to list which item of clothing was what brand. And look, it could have been just a badly put together outfit. Fashion is highly subjective. But if I were convicted of hate crime, especially against the Jewish community and their religion, I'd probably think twice if my outfits aren't wildly disrespectful and perhaps on the mocking side or could be wrongly perceived. May 2014, he signed with Russian perfume and cosmetics brand Letoy and to design imagery for the brand and accessories. Oh, and back before this, 12 June 2013, Galliano's first filmed interview since his dismissal from Christian Dior was broadcast on United States television. He closed this conversation by stating, "I am able to create, I am ready to create, and I hope through my atonement I'll be given a second chance." His publicist, who was also Madonna's publicist, did an amazing job booking him interviews with the most social media to be at the right time, right place. That combined with the support that he's got from Anna Wintour kind of had to work with the fashion world and Galliano. Shortly after, as mentioned, De La Renta passed away, so there were talks about Galliano becoming his permanent successor, but by the end of 2014, 6th of October to be precise, it's been officially announced that John Galliano will become the creative director of Maison Margiela and officially became a leader of a major fashion house again. Just contextually, if you don't think that Maison Margiela is a major brand, I can appreciate that opinion. June 11, 2014, quite a short article appeared in The Hollywood Reporter titled, John Galliano says his return will be bigger and stronger. Quote, the former Dior creative director also explains why he made his anti-Semitic remarks in Parisian cafe in 2011. Later that year, on November 4th, the Hollywood Reporter published another short update in which they mention, although he was ousted as Dior's creative director after making anti-Semitic remarks in 2011, Galliano was welcomed back to the fashion world in October as he was appointed the new creative director of Maison Martin Margiela. I wouldn't use ousted, but he sure as heck was welcomed back. In a Guardian article by Jess Courtney-Morley reporting on the documentary, she says, "The fashion world does not come off well in McDonald's film. The swift brushing aside of his behavior does not sit well with an industry that claims to hold diversity dear." Naomi Campbell grandly bats away the entire incident by declaring that she has never watched the video, as if that closes the matter. This is just a friendly reminder that this video on Naomi's scandal exists. Quote, "Frustratingly for the viewer, and you imagine for McDonald, neither Galliano nor anyone around him seemed to know where the anti-Semitism he expressed came from. His ranting descends without warning from playground taunts about being ugly into vile racism," end quote. And then his psychiatrist, quote, hypothesizes that anti-Semitism might have been embedded somewhere in his Spanish Catholic upbringing, end quote. Look, I'm super here for calling out organized religion, but I don't think we can blame everything on Catholics. Sure, you don't have to try very hard, and it will probably pick up. However, B, yes, whilst upbringing can surely have an effect on your opinions, by the time you're 51, you went through 2/3 of your life. You have formed your own opinions. This should not be water. I need at least like Capri Sun. There are exterior shots of Galliano looking vaguely pensive and a bit of chat about being in recovery for the rest of his life, but he seems as nonplussed as everyone else about what happened. He does not seem a bad man, but there is a certain carelessness to him. He says he apologized to Filippo Virgitti, I hope he's Italian, one of the people he hurled insults at, but Virgitti denies this, and Galliano shows little concern for his evident pain. The article doesn't fail to mention this documentary's timing. Initially released in September 2023, in cinemas from 8 March 2024, and last shown beginning of April. In January, Galliano lived through his extremely successful viral catwalk in Paris under the bridge downtown. John Galliano is now leaving Maison Margiela, might have left by the time editing Linda is done with this. And there are quite a few rumors, or there have been quite a few rumors about his next move. The rumors started with going back to Dior. Now, I don't think highly of Mr. Arnault's character, but I believe he knows better for his business. And I still hope that Kim Jones will take over Dior as a whole. Since June, July, the rumors have been that Galliano will join Fendi and lead menswear after Kim Jones resigned from that post, which obviously shook me, and here we are. I personally fancy myself a fashion conspiracy theoretician, and I think this whole culmination of the decade-long PR washing machine is for him to take over Chanel. So Chanel is to announce a new creative director after Virginia left, and they are to make that announcement early December. And this just coincides so nicely. Plus, Galliano has quite Lagerfeldish persona now, and because the house desperately needs a good designer, and we've established that Galliano is incredibly talented. But media aren't really reporting these rumors. So either it is an extremely well-kept secret, or I will be revoked my conspiracy fashion theoretician card and I'll be demoted from the self-proclaimed chairwomanship. Time for a fun fact. Meet Galliano's long-term partner, Alexis. Website showstudio.com talks about him, says, in 2003, Roche relocated to Paris, where he was appointed brand and celebrity consultant for Dior and John Galliano. During this period, Roche was heavily involved in Dior's creative evolution, from the advertising to concept and catwalk. Since 2014, Roche has worked as a freelance stylist and consultant for Maison Margiela. Just in case you were worried that nepotism's only direction is from a parent to a child. Normally I would be done with the script and offer my opinion on what I just went through. But as I was writing this, I didn't really trust myself to be anything but frustrated and exhausted by the behavior and collective media and societal memory loss. It also seems that we've been experiencing certain events and or thoughts on a loop, with the break periods in between being shorter and shorter. Galliano, Anna Wintour, Bernard Arnault, they don't care about us. This whole PR dirty laundry machine is not for us. It's for influential people. People in the position of power and or money. For media and retailers. It is so that Galliano's work is accepted into the wheelhouse of capitalism, regardless of which fashion house he currently designs for. We don't really matter like that. I came to a conclusion that it is completely okay for me to remember, to believe a fellow addict in recovery and his story, but not to have faith in him. I had a lot less privilege when I was young and these designers were booming. Now, as a person with some leftovers in my bank account, I just want to buy nice things from time to time. And it would be really great if I didn't have to go through a little black book of whom can I still buy from, crossing out names as they get exposed. Which sounds like a privileged joke about capitalism, because it is. There's a lot of melancholy hidden behind it, and that's mostly how I cope with capitalism. I can't break it, I can't fix it. All I can do is make choices based on what's available to me. I don't really have any question or prompt for you to leave in the comments. You're more than welcome to stay for the chats. Thank you for making it all the way here. It's really been a journey, and I wonder how much I've left out to make it digestibly short, or long, rather. There's a video on Naomi's scandal if you haven't seen it already, or a silly short one about Korean skincare if you want to check out my other videos. I appreciate you, I appreciate your support, and I'll see you soon. Bye!